In today's video, I'm going to be giving a brief overview of Lulabelle. Lulabelle is a web-based cost estimation and project control platform developed for contractors and the construction industry. The platform is a full end-to-end solution that can be used by all members of a project team. Starting at the tendering phase, estimators can use Lulabelle to develop detailed estimates from first principles to rapidly produce tenders. These estimates can then be used by project managers and project planners to forecast your future resource and cash flow requirements. Your on-site project team can then track their progress against these estimates to understand at any point in time where they are making or losing money. So as mentioned, Lulabelle is a web-based platform and it can be accessed from any device with a web browser by simply going to lulabelle.com and then selecting the login button. This will then launch the platform and take you to your so-called workspaces scene. So in Lulabelle, all projects are organized according to so-called workspaces, and each company will typically have one workspace where all of the users will have a seat in and where all of their projects will be stored. I have a personal workspace that I'm going to open up, where I have one folder with an example project in that I'm going to use for today's demo. You can launch this project simply by double clicking on it, and this will then take you into the so-called project workbench. So you'll notice on the left hand side you've got these navigation tabs that you can open or close, where you can access any of the modules in the system. So typically in Lulabelle you'll start from a bill of quantities. So you can import a bill of quantities directly from Excel or CSV or any file format that you choose. And this will automatically import the sections for you, the bill items with their quantities and with the units, and you're then ready to start pricing. In this project, I've already priced all of the bill items. So as you can see, they've already got net rates. I've already assigned markup. So all of these items already have selling rates, and we've got total selling amounts for the project in total and for individual items. So in Lulabelle, bill items are priced from so-called first principles. So the net rate that you're seeing here is not simply a plug rate, but there's actually a calculation sheet sitting behind it, detailing exactly all of the resources and expected production rates and wastages expected on site. So estimators can start by building up a so-called resource database for a project. So resources essentially represent the building blocks of any estimate, and it's basically everything that you spend money on. So this can be plant, your labor, fuel. So as you can see, I've got bricks in here, I've got carpenters, and so forth. So these resource lists are reusable. So you don't have to define a resource database for every single project from scratch, but you can simply reuse previous data elements from previous projects and simply update your allowables according to the new prices from suppliers. Okay, this resource list typically gets quite large for a real-world project, and Lulabelle provides various mechanisms for you to search and filter this resource list. So if, for example, you're interested in only seeing the plumbing materials, simply switch on the filter and it'll bring up the plumbing materials. This resource list is fully customizable and user-defined, and all of these control and filtering mechanisms are also fully user-defined. Alright, so once these resources have been set up, estimators can use them to price their bill items. So let's see how this is done. So as an example, let's open up the plastering of the interior walls item. So each bill item has a worksheet, and in this worksheet you can specify the full breakdown of exactly what is required on site. So when we do plastering on site, we're going to need some labor, most likely a plasterer as well as some general laborers to help him, and we're going to need some mortar. And the mortar most likely consists of building sand, building water, and cement. So our estimator can access any of the resources that is created via the Insert tab, which will bring up his full resource database, which you can search for resources and pull in anything that he wants to use in the plastering. Okay, the option is then given to apply a formula to any of these resources to specify how much of each resource you need, what the expected production rate is going to be, and for materials, what the expected wastage is going to be. Right, so Lulabelle not only allows you to pull in resources, but it also allows you to pull in teams of different resources called resource clusters. So mortar in this example, as mentioned, is a mixture, and it consists of building sand, cement, and building mortar with a specified mixing ratio and wastage. Lulabelle offers a module called resource clusters that allows you to build up such teams of resources that can be used during the pricing phase of a project. Okay, so these worksheets are reusable between projects. So if you ever need to price the plastering of interior walls again, you can simply reuse the full plastering worksheet in a new project and you will automatically have a fully priced item. Once the estimator has gone through the effort of pricing all of the individual bill items, you can assign markup to the items to get your selling rates, and there's various different ways in which you can do it, and you can access all of those options via the markup tab. Okay, now that the estimator has gone through this effort of pricing the project in detail, a lot of detailed feedback can be given to analyze this job now and to understand how costs are spread. So I'm going to switch over to my resource attributes module, where I've already set up a reporting attribute called resource types. So if, for example, we want to see how the money in this project is spread between fuel, labor, materials, and plant, I can switch on my tender finalization report, and automatically we can see how much money has been allowed for each type and how much money we're selling it to the client for. So in this example, we can see that in the project in total, we should not spend more than £83,730 on labor, and we should not spend more than £25,543 on materials. So all of these attributes and attribute classes are user defined and customizable. So you can set up any metrics that you want to track and analyze this project on, and all of these reports are also customizable. Okay, we can also run similar reports on resources. So if we switch over to the resources and I switch on my tender finalization report here, we'll be able to see the amount of money allowed for each resource in this project, and we'll also be able to see how much of each resource has been priced into this job. So we can see that we need 25 liters of diesel in this job. We need 11,000 bricks, and we're not allowed to spend more than £6,826 on those bricks. So this can be very useful for procurement purposes. So if I switch on my procurement report, it switches off all of the columns that we don't want the suppliers to see, and we can see how much of each resource we need. So let's say we're interested in working with roofing materials. I can filter out my roofing materials, and automatically we have a sheet that we can send to roofing suppliers to ask them for quotations. So in Lulabelle, our reporting is what you see is what you get. So if you click print and you download the report, it's automatically going to download this data set for you and compile it into a PDF report. You can export this file to any format, whether it's PDF or Excel or Word or whatever you choose. Okay, so once we've sent this quote off to suppliers, we can actually gather the quotes from suppliers and compare them effectively inside of Lula as well. So you can define a list of suppliers, where I've only defined 2 for this example, and you can then create an adjudication. So let's say we've received the quotes back for the roofing materials and we want to compare the quotes from Bob's Building Supplies to CT Hardware. So you can pull those supplier quotes in directly from Excel into the system. So here we can see the quotes that has been supplied by Bob's Building Supplies and the quotes that have been supplied by CT Hardware, and we can very easily see who is the more affordable supplier. So in this case, we can see that Bob's Building Supplies is the cheapest. So if we decide to go with Bob's Building Supplies, we can apply the adjudication and choose to apply Bob's Building Supplies. If we apply this, it will automatically take Bob's Building Supplies supplied quoted rates, and it will push it into the resource rates, and automatically the full bill of quantities price will be adjusted. Okay, we've got a similar module for subcontractors. So you can define subcontractors and you can adjudicate certain quotes from subcontractors for certain portions of the bill of quantities that's been subcontracted. So this really simplifies the lives of your estimators, and it can save them a lot of time. So once the estimators are done pricing their bill of quantities, they can take this bill of quantities and they can export it to any of the popular planning formats. So we've got a action tab here called Export Schedule. And if you open that up, you've got the option to, for example, export this bill of quantities to a Microsoft project file format. Lulabelle will automatically create an activity for each bill item. It will generate activity duration based on the production rate specified in the worksheet, and it will automatically export all of the resources in the worksheet into that activity as well. So I've already done this to just show you an example of this. As here you can see the same bill of quantities has been exported. Activities been created for each bill item with the correct duration with all of the resources required for that item. Your planners can then go ahead and schedule these activities and link them up, and you can then pull that back into Lula and start doing forecasts on how your allowable spread is looking going forward. Okay, so I've already set up a 6-month forecast where we can here see how our allowables are going to be spread across time. So we can see in January we're going to be processing 3 cubes of foundation. By the end of February we would have processed 6 cubes of the foundation, and so forth. All of these columns in Lulabelle are user defined, so you can create your own quantity and measurement columns in Lulabelle. So if you want to set up a forecast for the coming week or track progress for the day that went by, this is all possible and fully customizable. Lulabelle allows you to run reports against all of these columns. So if, for example, we now want to see how much of each resource we're going to require going forward, we can simply open up our resource scene, open up the reports, and switch on our 6-month quantity forecast. Here we can see how much of each resource we're going to be needing over the next 6 months. So for bricks, we can see that by the end of January, we're going to have used 577 bricks. By the end of February, we're going to have used 3,176 bricks, and so forth. So this is very useful for planning, and this is also useful for cash flow forecasting. You can also switch on the net amount and the selling amount reports to understand what your cash flow forecast is going to look like in a project as well. Okay, so once the planning phase is over and once you've won the tender, your job is going to go out to site. So Lulabelle has various modules to help your site personnel be more effective. Firstly, it gives complete transparency, so your site agents will have access to exactly what the estimator is priced for. They can open up these worksheets, they can print them out and see exactly what's been allowed for. But they can also track their progress against this estimate. So I've set up a progress tracking report for us. And in this progress tracking, I've created one column for myself called my actual progress. And here my site agent can fill in day to day how much of a bill item has been processed. Right, so this is not only useful for reporting purposes, but it's also very useful when you need to produce your monthly payment certificates. So I've set up a payment certificate in Lula, which indicates how much the client has owed you at the previous period, how much he owed you for this month, and how much he's owed you in total for this project. Once again, you can export this to Excel or to PDF or whatever format you choose to. But the real power from Lula comes from the reporting that we can now pull on this progress measurements, given the estimates that have been developed for this bill of quantities. So let's once again go back to my resource types. And let's say at the end of month 1, we want to understand how much money we're allowed to have spent on each of these individual resource types. So I'm going to switch on my progress analysis report. And here we can clearly see how much money we were allowed to spend on each of these different categories of resources. So at the end of the month, we were not allowed to have spent more than £17 on fuel, and not more than £3,566 on labor, and not more than £2,442 on material. This can then get compared to your accounting system where your actual costs are captured, and it can be very easy to then pick up where there is a cost overrun. So if your accounting or ERP system indicates that you've already spent £3,000 on materials, then there's a cost overrun of £600 on your materials. Lulabelle then gives you the option to drill down further onto the resource level to understand exactly on what material that overrun was happening on. So I'm going to switch on my progress analysis report on the resources, and we are interested in material resources. So I'm going to switch on my material filter, and that will automatically filter out all of the material resources used in this project. And here we can very clearly see what quantity of each resource we were allowed to use up to date and how much money we were allowed to spend on each of these resources up to date. Note that this is also the same level of detail against which procurement typically takes place in your accounting system. So we can very easily compare how much money we were allowed to spend on each resource versus how much we actually spent on that resource. So let's say, for example, we pick up that we've already purchased 40 meters worth of brick force and we've already spent £40 on that brick force. Then there's obviously an overspend on that resource. And Lulabelle provides you with the tooling to do a forensic analysis on this resource to try and understand where exactly things are going wrong on this resource in this project. So we can do a find and replace, and we can very quickly see in what worksheets that resource is being used and in what bill items that resource is being used. So we can then jump into these items and try and understand where things are going wrong, and we can monitor these items more closely on site to ensure that their execution actually matches what the estimator allowed for. And that is really the power of a system like Lulabelle, where everything is priced in terms of resources and first principles, is that you can very quickly pinpoint exactly where things are going wrong in your job and try and stop these cost overruns before they become serious issues. So I hope that this overview has given you some insight into the capabilities of a system like Lulabelle. And I hope that you can see that it's not only an estimating system, but it's also a full project control solution where your original estimate developed in Lulabelle forms the blueprint against which all forecasting and progress is measured throughout the duration of the project. So thank you for joining us, and until next time.